Okay.
Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. So I'd like to welcome anybody that's on currently live watching us. And my guest today is going to be Dr. Shane Needham. And so we're going to talk about his journey with creating a CRO. But before we hop into the interview, I just wanted to quickly mention we do have the uh, life science maturity assessment up on my website, and I would encourage everybody to go onto the website and download it. It's a great way to see how mature your organization is and whether or not if you're going to have issues regarding scaling your organization as it grows. So with that, let me introduce Dr. Shane Needham. He's a serial entrepreneur and founder of many scientific businesses, including several bioanalytical CROs. Dr. Needham has more than 20 years of experience leading and growing 4 different companies. So with that, welcome, Shane.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, Don. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So before we hop into the interview, you want to tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Oh my goodness. Sure. Yeah. I'm Shane Needham. I guess if I kind of go in order of who I am, I actually am a father. Also actually, let's back up there. I'm a fiance, going to be married soon. Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm a father. I'm a entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur of actually 6 businesses now. I'm serial entrepreneur, but I'm also a scientist, a CEO, a national champion bodybuilder, state champion powerlifter, podcaster, author. Oh, I'm probably forgetting a few, but I'm not painted with one brush, and I really, really am glad that I'm not. And I'm just truly living the American dream. So that's kind of who I am. I mean, if we get into details as we move through the podcast, I'd be glad to share more.
Yeah, I mean, it brings me to one of the things that I also wanted to share with everybody. So on LinkedIn, Shane put up just before this episode, actually, he put up like a diagram of his life, all the different things that he's done. And so, as I looked in here, I saw things like Moscow Wrestling Club, and I saw the powerlifting and bodybuilding as well, and then also starting businesses. So very impressive, to say the least.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So with regards to, I guess maybe let's just, maybe pull apart a couple of different things with regards to your personal life, because I mean, one of the things that I actually saw about you was that you were also a TEDx speaker. And so, can you tell everybody a little bit about your talk titled Never Be Outworked?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a couple of years ago now, and I had the opportunity to be a TEDx speaker, to give a TED talk at a local organization. And I thought, well, I've I grew up in a lower middle class family. We always had food on the table. My dad worked really, really hard, taught me a great work ethic. He retired just a couple of years ago, working 60 hours a week, and he was 70 some years old, and he loved it. And he went to work when it was sunny, when it was rainy, when he didn't want to go to work, and he always had a good mindset about that. And so I just thought, growing up in rural America, I grew up on farms, worked on farms, changed hand line water. I won't get into what that is necessarily. Go look at my TED talk, do a Google search on it, Shane Needham TEDx talk, and you can find out more about it. Bucked bales, but just did all kinds of farm labor, and that really drove me to who I was. I mean, I was also a wrestler in high school, had some great coaches that were just always talking about goals and mindsets and putting me in leadership positions. And I just thought about growing up in rural America, how it gave me a work ethic like no other. So when I got to college, to Washington State University, I'm certainly not the smartest person in the room. I'll just be honest. I mean, I didn't break triple digits on my SATs. It's embarrassing. It really is. I don't know if I got 900. I mean, I basically failed the math part. I mean, it was just awful, right? But I just look at all those test scores, and when I was on academic probation for my first half of a semester at Washington State University, including getting a D in chemistry, and I wanted to be a chemist. And I can still remember, I'm like, well, what do I have to do? And I just had to work harder. And so I studied more and stayed up till 1, 2 every morning. And it didn't come easy to me, but I just worked harder. And I can still remember that second test in chemistry. This is in the old days when you would go outside the room after they graded papers, like a couple of days later, and they'd have all the grades. You may or may not remember this, Don, but they'd have your like student ID or social security number,
Sure.
and then you go look to see what grade you got. And I believe that second test I got a C plus or a B minus. I don't remember, but I was overjoyed. I was like, yes. And there was this one kid that I actually went to middle school with, straight A student, 4.0 always, always had received A's, never really had experienced failure. It kind of came natural to him, just kind of being intelligent. And he got an A minus or a B plus. I don't remember what it was. And he turned to his friend and he says, he was going to be an engineer. And he says, I quit. I'm going to go to political science. And he
Wow.
did because he got a B plus or an A minus. And I don't, it was one of those. And it's like, it showed me that's like it's not about how smart you are. It's about your perseverance and about how you're going to never give up and about how you're going to never be outworked. And so that's kind of what my trademark is now. And I hashtag it a lot: is never be outworked. Always be the hardest working person in the room, and you're going to succeed at anything you choose to do.
Yeah, so there were two elements that I took away from that. So one, I would never also stand outside of the room after a test because people would stand outside and they'd pick apart the questions and how they answered and things like that. I would never. I learned early on never to do that because it's kind of demoralizing, right? If you know that you answered wrong, are you going to admit that you answered wrong? And then if you answered correctly, the key question is whether or not if you all got it right. I mean, it never meant, whether or not if people actually got the answer right. They just sort of, yes, we all answered things the same way. And
Yeah.
then I told my kids the same thing about college. It was, look, whenever you go, essentially, this is a test of, will you stay and see it through more than it is whether or not if you can, achieve the grades. And at the end of the day, most people don't look at your GPA. They look oftentimes at the degrees you have, and that's about it. So that's as far as it goes. So
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's definitely true. And so that taught me a lot. It just taught me a lot. And so, growing up in a rural environment, growing up on farms and being surrounded by people who, did hard manual labor.
yeah,
And it's not that I wasn't accustomed to that and not doing it. A lot of my jobs were manual labor, beginning early in my career, but I always wanted to be a scientist. And I always just kind of looked around, and I mean, I remember being in my grandparents' house and looking around and seeing the colors of curtains and the carpet, which of course was 1970s green. And I'm just like, how do those colors exist? And I can still vividly remember that. And it's like, I want to study how those colors exist. And that was kind of I was probably 12 years old or something. That was kind of the part, the beginning of my chemistry journey to think, I want to be a chemist. And I didn't really know what it entailed or what kind of education I had to get, but I just wanted to be a chemist.
yeah. Well, I'm glad that you are and glad that you're here. I guess the strangest part for me, or maybe not so strange, knowing that you're a wrestler, was to see the powerlifting and then the bodybuilding. What made you want to do those things?
Yeah, well, it's good. It had probably a lot to do with wrestling. I had a wrestling coach in high school, just a great guy. And he kind of introduced me to lifting at like the age of 14 or so. And so I always liked to lift. I read more. And as my wrestling career in high school kind of was over, and I had opportunities to go to college and wrestle, but I chose not to. I wanted to really focus on my education. And so, but I'm like, I love lifting. And so why not, start this bodybuilding journey? And so at the age of 19 and 20, I did my first two competitions and I just kind of fell in love with it. And I've lifted. It's just lifting to me and training to me. After this podcast, I'm going to go to the gym, and it's just like eating breakfast or dinner. I do it. It's part of my. If I don't do it, it's just I become a mess. It's almost like me not eating. And so since the age of 14, and now I'm 52 years old, I've never had more than a week off. And I mean, I've had broken bones, I've had sprains and injuries and twists, and somehow I figure out how to move. There's been times in the gym where I can't even do a push up because I tore a muscle or something like that, or I separated my shoulder. That's one of them, but I just slowly rebuilt. And so because of the diet of wrestling, I think it kind of and lifting, it kind of put me into the place where, hey, I can do bodybuilding. I know how to diet. I know how to, and so I just fell in love with it. And so I had never done powerlifting per se in competition, but I'd always lifted. And then somebody in 2018 or early 2019 says, "Yeah, you should compete." And I love competing. I just love it. I love competing. I love winning, of course, but I love competing. That's more fun than than winning. And that's what Vince Lombardi says. It's like he says, what's his saying? Winning's not the um, let's see, winning's the only, not the, what is it? Winning's the only thing. What he really meant to say there was, they took it out of context, was um, the will to win is the only thing,
Uh,
and that's what I like. I just like competing. Yeah, I might lose, but I just don't look at it as losing. I learn from it. So in 2019, I learned how to properly do the lifts, the bench press, deadlifts, and squats. I'd been doing them for years, but I wanted to make sure that I could do that in competition. And so I entered my first powerlifting competition in August of 2019, and I won the open division. So I beat kids that were kids that were half my age, but I also set 4 state records for my class, and some of them still are a hold. And I don't remember what division they are, but some of them are still active records. And so, and I competed the year before in bodybuilding again, but I'd taken off. I raised kids, I built businesses, I went to school, so I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't have time to do those things. But when I started approaching, mid 40s, I had built up a business where things kind of ran themselves. We had really good operations people, and I'm like, hey, I can live this American dream. I have done all this sacrifice. I've done all this sacrifice for years, working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, always on, not taking vacations. It's like, okay, now I'm going to start doing some of these other things just to fulfill my life personally. And so I entered my first bodybuilding competition in 2018 and had a great, wonderful coach. He was a hard nose for sure, but that's why you went to him. You wanted, and he actually told me he would only take very few clients. And I actually asked him after I won. So I went in 2018, and I didn't know how I was going to do, but he says, you're going to do well. And he took me on and he trained me and showed me how to diet properly and lift and all these things. And I won I won the show. I won my division. I won my master's division. I won the open division. And I was shocked. I was kind of what would I say, the gossip of the show, because I was this unknown person that nobody knew. It was great. And I asked him, hey, Brad, why'd you take me as a client? He says, because I knew you wanted to win. That's what he said. He says, I knew you had the will to win.
awesome.
And we became good friends. And he sadly passed away a year or so ago, but we became really, really good friends. And it was just, then at that point, I just told myself, you know what? I really only want to be surrounded with winners and people who have those mindsets. So then the next year I did a powerlifting competition. I won the state championships, and then took a few years off, and then I'm like, hey, I want to go win a national bodybuilding championship. So I hired the right coach, and I mean, he just did an incredible job. Incredible. And I mean, me being a coach myself, a wrestling coach, and I'm a CEO at one of my laboratories, Velocity Labs. And but I love the CEO title, don't get me wrong. And I'm honored to have it, privileged to have it, and I'm grateful that I can lead teams, but I'm a coach. That's what a CEO that's what a CEO is. And
Yeah.
all these different things, when I started coaching wrestling and doing my bodybuilding journey, doing my powerlifting journey, I thought to myself, and I started reading books, and it's like, I'm a coach. That's who I am. And those experiences have made me such a better CEO. Not even close. And because the concepts are the same, whether you're running a political organization, a business, or a sports team, the concepts of leadership are all the same.
Yeah.
And so that, I don't know if that's kind of what got me into it. And so, yeah, last December I won the national bodybuilding championships in my division. And I mean, I set that goal in January. Did I think I could accomplish it? Yeah, probably. But I was just so proud that I did. It was just incredible. And so it was just an awesome journey to be there with my kids and they could see it and they could experience it. And my fiance was there. It was an awesome journey.
Yeah, my daughter and son-in-law both have done this before, and I mean I have to give a lot of credit for the I mean the training is one thing, so getting in shape to go do it is amazing. The dieting you guys do is just
Oh,
crazy. I mean, just
it's
absolutely nuts. You have to eat this within this amount of time, and I mean, it's just I don't know. It's
one.
amazing. And then, of course, as you get closer to the timeline, the thing is that you want as much lean muscle showing as possible. So at that point in time, you want like nothing coming in, and it's just
Yeah.
crazy to me
But you
to watch from the
guys can go
sidelines.
people can go visit my website at drsneedham.com and you can see the pictures and whatnot there. But I was sub 2% body fat. And
Yeah,
it just, yeah. And I felt horrible. I had no energy. And my coach says, yep, that means you're going to do well.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So just a great journey. I've been very blessed in so many instances of my life.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's an amazing thing to pull off, at any stage of life, and to do it, at your stage of life as well is a real accomplishment. So
Thank,
congratulations on that.
thank you. I appreciate it.
So let's kind of go backwards in terms of your first laboratory experience. So it looks like, according to your timeline, that's right around 2000. You start your first laboratory, and sort of get things going. What made you start? What made you want to do that? I mean, one of the things you wrote in your post was just and I think it's important for people to know, right? Many of us have this idea or want to go do something bigger than ourselves, and myself included. And oftentimes we're kind of our own worst challenge, right? In terms of like the self-talk that goes on that says, hey, look, you're going to meet a lot of challenges along the way. Is this something you really want to do? And I felt like your post was really encouraging in that line. And so I want to just take you back and ask you, what made you get started?
Oh man, well, I was working for Pfizer at the time, and I had great opportunity. We were really the first bioanalytical LCMS group, so I worked on the first LCMS in the industry from SciEx. I mean, what an honor! I mean, it absolutely was. Worked with some great people in that group. We were really top notch, and I loved it. I have nothing bad to say about that experience. What was hard for me is that I had lots of ideas. I was always trying to move forward, always trying to grow, always trying to win. And, you know, you're just another cog in the wheel. And in those big bureaucratic organizations, it's, I guess, a safe environment, so to speak, but you don't get out what you put into it. You just don't. And so I just saw that. And so I had an opportunity to start a laboratory in Moscow, Idaho in the year 2000. And I mean, certainly huge challenges. I mean, financial challenges, budget challenges, marketing challenges. I knew nothing about business. And you know what? None of us that went into business together really did either. They just didn't. And that's why 20 years later, well, 21 years later, I've taken the experience that I've learned and started another CRO. And it's just, oh my gosh, I skyrocket. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, I was talking to a colleague today who's a friend too, and we just always bounce business ideas off each other and positive mindset things. And he's like, what really inspired me, Shane? I said, no, what? He says, when you launched your new lab last year from scratch, and he says, I watched you draw it on a napkin and essentially say, this is what we're going to do, and then you executed it. He says that inspires me every single day. Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
just cool. We have a great team, people that want to work with us, people that are coming to join our team because of the excitement that we're showing and just the environment that we're creating. All these things that you talked about. Everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and I'm writing a book about motivating and building teams, Don. And one of those concepts is everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah.
And I call that concept FACT, FACT. Um, F stands for fun, fulfilling. A stands for autonomy. C stands for competence. And T stands for team. Everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so I'm writing a book about that. And it's true. That's the environment that I created at Velocity. And those concepts work so well. It's like Steve Jobs said, I don't hire smart people to tell them what to do. I hire smart people so they can tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And it's been incredible. I our team, I just can't believe how young, inception wise we are, but the wisdom and the business experience that we put together into this team, and all privately funded, incredible, incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and that is an absolute, amazing sort of, journey, as well as, I congratulate you on your book. I just finished one in September, essentially launched in September, and
Congratulations.
there are a
Awesome.
lot of people that are um, using it for a January 1st, New Year's resolution, book, primarily to just, get out there the word of, hey, look, let's focus in on how do you not be overcommitted in life, which is what the book is essentially describing. And it's
Wait to read.
behind me back there, even though you can't see it.
I want to get that book. I'm already making my reading list for 2023. So I'm gonna buy it. Is it on Amazon?
It is. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's
awesome.
available on Amazon. Yeah,
Good.
it's available anywhere books are sold. If anybody wants to pick up a copy, I'd be honored to have you do that, and that'd be great. And of course, I'll closely monitor your journey as well, in terms of writing this. My next book will be focused in on operational excellence, so that's sort of the next
I love
topic that
both
I'm
of those.
tackling.
If I get a signed copy of that first one, I would love it. I
Yeah,
would love it. Yeah.
absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent, Don. Thank you.
All right. So next question for you is, all right, so you kind of fast forward from 2000 until now, and you just get out there and start Velocity Labs. What made you want to do this and draw it up on the napkin and focus in on getting it executed? What was sort of the impetus for that?
I mean, just some really cool things came together. I mean, I had a he wasn't a colleague then, but somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn that's a lot younger than me. But I mentor a lot of people, and he just reached out to me, Dr. Mitch Johnson, and he's one of our shareholders and owners, but also our laboratory director. And he's like, I got some ideas about starting a lab. Do you, you know, can you help me out? And so we had this virtual call, just like you and I are having now, except it wasn't live, and with everybody in the public. And he had this great business plan. He's a lot like you, Don. Which is rare. So he had a PhD. I could tell he had the technical expertise, but he had the communication and business skills of somebody who doesn't have a PhD but a business person, right? Those are rare combinations, as you know, very
Yes.
very rare. I am very blessed to have some of those at least, and I've been looking for a person like him to put in my businesses for 20 years, and I'm like, I could see just after 2 seconds of just being on the line with him, I'm like, this guy's awesome. And so he had these great ideas that he couldn't implement at his other organizations, and nobody ever took his ideas seriously, right? And I just loved his ideas. I had ideas that I was never able to implement in my other organizations because people would say, "Oh, that's a dumb idea. It's a crazy idea. It would never work." Okay, okay. So at the very end of the conversation, I said, Mitch, this is a great idea. I like it. I said, how are you going to fund it? And he said, well, I'm going to go to the bank and get an SBA loan. What do you think? And I was kind of silent. I said, well, you can do that. I said, I don't think they're going to give you enough money and it's going to take too long. He says, really? I said, but do you want a business partner? And he said, who? And I said, me. And he said, yes. And it was that night I was still training for my national championship. I'm on the stairmaster, and I call up my good friend Paul, and I kind of told him the situation. And Paul is into instrument acquisition, and we needed capital equipment. I'm like, hey Paul, we're going to need some capital equipment. Here's what's going on. I'm going to start this new lab. Can you get us new capital equipment? He's like, he pauses like he always does in his wise responses, and he says, okay, we can give you the equipment, but do you want a business partner? I said, well, who? And he says, well, me. And then he says, but Martin and Herb, good friends of ours, they'd have to be part of it too. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And it has truly been a dream team. We have taken the industry by storm. We're employee owned. It's just been incredible. We are all electronic from the ground up. So we have no, and you probably have this in some of your CEO books about operations management. We have no legacy systems.
Yeah.
As you know, legacy systems can be a huge, inefficient big rock or battleship that
We
just
always
does not.
called them monoliths. That's what the
Yeah,
big unmovable object. So yes, yeah,
exactly. We don't have that. So our turnaround times and our response times are days. Right now, people in our industry, and I don't see it change anytime soon, are weeks, months, and months and months. So we have set the bar for bioanalysis in for CROs, and it's incredible. I'm really proud of what our team has accomplished in just a little over a year.
So who do you work with primarily? Are they smaller companies that are investigating drugs, bigger pharma organizations, and also do you do diagnostics? I think is another important question.
Good question. I'll do the easy one first. The easy one first is diagnostics, not at this time. That may be a business model or a line that we develop some other day, but there's enough in LCMS, MLS bioanalytical work that we're doing right now that we just don't have a need for diagnostics right now. But we work, a lot of smaller, mid-size organizations that haven't got the attention from the larger CROs. And there's been so many M&As, so many mergers and acquisitions that there's not a lot of private CROs left, and Velocity is one of them, right? And so we're able to have that client-centric customer experience and really have one client at a time, so to speak. So I don't care if you're a small emerging organization or if you're a mid-size or if you're biotech. We want you as a client because we know you. That's where a lot of the innovation occurs in a lot of those smaller companies, as you know, Don.
Yeah,
And then big pharma buys them, right? But if your name is not one of the big pharmas, it's hard to get things done in CROs. So having said that, that's who has started us out is some of the smaller and emerging organizations. But at the same time, we've been getting lots of interest. That's all I can say because we're very under confidence here, and I can't say who we're working with, but from a lot of larger organizations as well. And
yeah,
it's really cool to think about that. I mean, again, our first day of business was March 1st, 2022, and we have crushed our goals for 2022. I mean, two, three, 4x. I mean, it's incredible.
excellent.
Yeah.
And then, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in the industry?
Oh my goodness. Don, I'm going to have to pause on this and think about it because I can just say that what we set out to execute and to do has been nearly flawless execution. So, I mean, I can use the common one that it's hard to find good people, but we're located centrally in Peoria, Illinois, where cost of living is very low, yet we're Midwest, right? And yet we have a small town, big town atmosphere. So even recruiting people is not difficult. We actually have people coming to us and saying, "Hey, I want to work with you guys." And some of these people are tops in the industry, and it's just been a phenomenal thing. And so, gosh, operations better than I do. I guess scaling, we're doing it really well. Planning for growth, I guess that's the challenge. Making sure. So one of the things that we do is we operate what we call at 80% capacity. That means we have more than enough instruments to do the work and more than enough people. We're always going to be getting equipment and people before we actually have all that work. So we operate at 80% capacity. So trying to manage that to make sure we have enough instruments and enough people to get the work coming in for the next year. And we've been doing a great job of it. But I would say that's kind of the challenge, maybe, is operate at that 80% capacity with as much business as we already have. But you know what? We're still doing it, and we still have days turnaround time, which is just incredible.
Excellent. And then, where do you see the biggest opportunities in life sciences?
Oh, biggest luck opportunities in life sciences. Gosh, that is a big bucket. Life sciences. Do you want to ask something more specific to our industry? Because I
No,
could go off on tangents here. Okay.
I'll let you pick a tangent. Feel free.
Okay. I think the biggest, I guess, did you say challenge? What'd you call it, Don? I want to make sure.
Opportunities. Where are the biggest opportunities? Because the last one was challenges. So where do you see the
Yeah.
biggest opportunities?
I think the biggest opportunities is managing the growth from personalized medicine that's going to happen because of genomics, proteomics, and metabolomics. So we've learned so much with metabolomics, genomics, and proteomics that we can really start personalizing medicine. That can be sometimes at a testing level, but it can certainly be at the gene level where they'll say, hey, you are a candidate for this particular therapeutic if you have this genomic structure, right? And I just think that we're seeing that all the time. I mean, you think about mRNA, siRNA, all the RNAs, and a lot of that, I mean, it's been around for a long time, as you know, Don. The pandemic kind of moved some of that forward to make it more visible. So a lot more people are working on it. We learned a lot of things during the pandemic about making vaccines and mRNA and so on and so forth. So I think that's where a lot of the opportunities are going to oligonucleotides, whatnot, moving forward. Oh, excuse
Bless
me.
you. Yeah,
Thank you.
so I mean, I don't disagree at all. I mean, I, I think that, even in some of the interviews that I've done recently, you hear more and more that people are trying to move things closer to the, kind of the source with, like, so let's just say CAR T therapies and NK therapies. You need not just personalized medicine, but you have to have a quick turnaround as well, to be able to sort of, just manage the workflow that's coming. And then on top of it, having CROs that are thinking differently about sort of the process that people go through, is also important as well. I mean, some of the most frustrating conversations that I've had, frankly, in the industry has been, around change orders with the CRO. So, either we're delayed or we're early in terms of our timeline. And so trying to get stuff, sort of into a CRO. And, I've just had these conversations about late fees and things like that, with the different CROs, change order penalties. And my conversations typically are, guys, if all you have to do is look no further than Blockbuster to know that this is not a model that scales. This will be a problem that eventually people are going to get sick of, and they're going to get just as fed up as I am with trying to tell you, hey, look, I'm early. Well, that'll cost you money. Hey, I'm late. Well, that'll cost you money. Well, it's something that's been an absolute challenge for me in the industry, alone, whenever we're either late or early.
I hear you. I hear you. And that's why our lab exists. I mean, because, we want those, authentic, honest communications, transparent communications with our clients. I mean, we're collaborators, and yeah, we call them clients, we call them sponsors, whatever, but we're really collaborators. We are an extension of their team.
So important.
Yeah. And that's what
Yeah,
people say when they work with us. They're like, hey, I've got to share this. I was so excited. I thought about making a social media post about it. I might, but one of our clients, last week, this week, everybody's kind of shut down in our industry, right, Don? Or a
sure.
lot of people across the world are shut down, right? And it's a great time to re-engage and re-energize and all that. And but they sent us this, I guess I don't know the correct terms, but a meme, essentially, a moving picture of this, like 6 or 7 shadowed superheroes, and they said, "This is what the team at Velocity reminds us of." And I was just like, "That is so cool!" It's awesome, and
Yeah.
we're a part of their team. They're a part of our team, so to speak. We're all in this together, and so and being private makes a big difference. You with a lot of these large organizations, they are beholden to their monthly returns from their stockholders or whatever, and we know the best long term investment is with our client.
Yeah.
Period. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I just came from a conversation earlier today with a newer VC who's looking at different models in terms of supplying capital. And that exactly was where our conversation went to was, how will your model be different? And what specifically, you know, are you thinking about? Because, you're right. I mean, whenever you're private, you're led one way. But there's certainly a belief inside of the VCs to try and create more and more need for more and more cash, of which then you need more and more funding. And it's sort of, at the end of the day, it's kind of a self-serving prophecy of the VCs. Not to beat them down, because I know that they do a lot of good work too, but there are people out there who essentially tell you, hey, look, staff up even before you're ready. And it's something that just absolutely baffles me, having seen it. And sort of having senior executive conversations inside organizations saying, don't, this is one thing with the VCs you need to figure out, how do you pull back from, and don't totally betray what it is that you have to do for them. But at the same time, if your capacity is telling you need, let's say, 14 people today, if you go hire 40 tomorrow and you don't have the business for it, you're essentially just going to create a giant hole you have to fill. So let's not sort of do that. And I feel like the private funded organizations have the ability to sort of think through a little bit more of, what specifically do we need today, and what don't we need, and
Yeah.
where do we want to go?
Well, it's a cool part of it, Don. For example, when I'm we'll be on a virtual call, just like you and I are, with one of our collaborators, a sponsor or client, and it'll be me and Mitch on the call, and we'll be talking about a project or something, and they might have some questions or whatever. We make the decision on that call. There's no going back to the board of directors because we are the board of directors. There's no going back to all the shareholders and so on and so forth and taking this months long process. It's like, boom, we're making a decision now. Our industry in life science is all about timelines. So
Yes.
if you think about every therapeutic that's not on the market, it's a million minimum in general of $1 million a day. And that's not a blockbuster. That's kind of an orphan therapeutic, right? That's 360 million a year, right? And so it's all about timelines.
Yeah.
And so it's been great to, really collaborate with our partners this year and just move programs quickly for them. And they're just always in awe, like, yep, you guys always over deliver. Like, well, that's our motto, under promise and over deliver. So, and it's just been a really, really fun ride. And it's 2023 and the next few years is only going to be better.
So, Shane, there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. First one is, what inspires you?
Oh my goodness. Jeez, I'm usually ready for these things. What inspires me? I mean, is it a person, or is it how the world works? I mean, what are you?
I
It's just
leave this open for the guest. This is totally up to you.
um uh
Sometimes
I guess
people answer it personally, and sometimes people answer it as well, from a business perspective. So just to give you a little bit
yeah,
more to time to think about it as
absolutely.
well.
So let me just start with my business perspective and just what's really really good in my life right now, and it's the people at Velocity, and I don't want to forget anybody, so I won't name any names, but every person on that team is, how you always have what my executive coach, when I used to have one, he used to always call the 10% bozo ratio. Usually you have about 10% of your employees that are bozos, and you just kind of have to live with it. We have zero. And I don't see that ever happening because we're not going to allow it. But our team is just a dream team. I'm inspired by them. I ask for advice from them. I'm mentored by them. I'm the CEO. I'm the top dog, so to speak. And they help me just as much as I help them. So I'm inspired by them. But I do have a personal vision and a personal mission in my life. And my personal vision for me personally is to glorify God and leave a legacy for my children. And that's really what inspires me. I think about the things that I do, and I'm a believer, and I just think that without God in my life, I just wouldn't have the inspiration. I would think that a lot of these things are just meaningless. And then leaving a legacy for my children's children, that's kind of what my vision is as well. Is that's just very inspiring to me. Nobody's going to remember 20 years from now that I was CEO at Velocity. Nobody will remember that I started 6 different companies and I'm on 13 different boards. Nobody's going to remember that I was national champion. But you know what? My kids' will likely, hopefully, have my same name, and there might be a picture thrown around or two at a dinner table, and that's what's inspiring. But and my mission is to inspire as many people daily as possible by doing whatever it takes. And so, kind of by inspiring others, I get inspired. That's my mission. I mean, I see so many people that I just help with advice, whether it be how to eat right, nutrition, mindset advice. And I do this, a lot of it for free, especially for my close people. I mean, I also have a business consulting business that I also get paid to do some of this too. But how to lift, how to train, how to get healthy. I've helped so many people, by helping people, I get inspired. That's my mission.
Yeah.
It really just falls right into my vision of glorifying God and leaving a legacy for my children. So that's how I get inspired, by inspiring other people.
Yeah, it's amazing the breadcrumbs that we can leave behind as well for what might be our great grandchildren or whoever, right? I mean, they might have an opportunity to, see you on a podcast or, be able to listen to your voice in some way in the future, and we have no idea. And that is
It
inspiring
is
for sure.
cool. Yeah, it is. It is really, really cool. So I guess that's what inspires me, is inspiring others.
Excellent. And second question, what concerns you?
Yeah. uh, I am a father. I'm a father of four, and I think this is probably just a generational concern and a generational question. And I think we've had it. If I think about my grandparents, for example, they were part of the greatest generation. The Great Depression, World War II. They were and all that. And my dad was a baby boomer, and so I think every generation has probably said, this generation's lazy. They can't work like we do, and blah 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 blah. And I do think about that. I think about, this is what I think about is I think about, let's just say, my great grandparents. So you're talking like World War One veterans, right? Um, and so in the last 150 years, it's only 150 years, Don, where every generation in the United States and most first world countries, and this is not historic, this is not millennial wise, this is not go back millennia, but every generation wants to improve for the next generation. And that's always happened. But that's only about 150 years old. If you think about thousands of years, we spent thousands of years with no real development. Do you know what I mean? We still didn't have clean water. We still didn't have adequate food supplies, so on and so forth. But the last 120 years of the Industrial Revolution, every generation has kind of improved. I don't know if that's going to happen with the next generation. For the first time in history, and by the way, it has nothing to do with the pandemic, lifespans are now less in this generation than they were in the generation before. Only by like zero point 0.8 years. But why is that? What is the reason for that? Is it our health? Is it our habits? What, our environment? I don't know. And that concerns me for my own kids and my kids' kids. So, but what do I tell my kids? No matter what it throws at you, as long as you're better than the guy next to you, that's all that matters. Life's a competition. So that's kind of what it's about. And that's it. That's also through ancient times. What's that one story when a bear starts chasing you and one guy sits down and puts on his
I
running
only have to
shoes,
be faster than you. Yeah, right.
and the other guy
Yes.
says, "What are you doing? Put on running shoes. You can't outrun this bear." He says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just outrun you."
Right. Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a negative, win at all costs, approach. But what I do think is it's very important. You have to stand out in society. You have to be that person that's going to float to the top, or you're going to get run over. And just some of the environmental factors that we have nowadays, that they're challenges that we haven't seen over the last 100 years. So I might be sounding just like my grandparents. I probably do, but that's my concern. That's my
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of this that I don't necessarily agree with. I mean, I think that this idea of standing on the shoulders of giants, right, is going to eventually sort of cause us all to sit and look at the upcoming generations and go, my goodness, they delivered, right?
Yeah.
But I think time has to tell, and until then, people can be skeptical and things like that. I have absolute um, an absolute strong belief that the next generations are going to care a lot more about the environment than we cared about the environment as we were coming along. I mean, I remember it was one of my very first papers for my bachelor's degree was on essentially the idea of chlorofluorocarbons having an impact on our environment. And I remember everybody sitting there going, I mean, look at all the skeptics. Look at everybody that doesn't believe that this is true. And now you look at these big snowstorms and big hurricanes and everything else that's sort of impacting our environment. I mean, you could blame it on global warming, global cooling, or whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, I mean, somebody's got to come along with another solution for that. Well, whether it's scientists on one side or it's, people thinking about, sort of, just what do we do with people that are impacted? I mean, you think about all these people in northern New York that were just impacted by this storm.
That was
Hopefully
crazy.
that never happens again in our lifetime because we know better, but
Yeah.
you
No,
never know.
you bring up some good points. And when we just think about our own little microcosm of the United States, which essentially is just a small part of the world, how do other parts of the world affect what happens to us too? And and how do we control that? Well, we can't. I
Right.
mean, we can talk about it, but we really can't control it. And so you're right. There are challenges, and so there's truth in what you're saying for sure, Don.
Yeah. So the last question for you is what excites you?
Oh my gosh, what excites me? Getting up every day and just being alive. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I've truly lived and am living the American dream. So every day I have something to do. I get up, I'm thankful for what I have to do. And I get to inspire people. I get to make small little changes that over time can really be big changes. And so just getting up every day and having the habits that I have and just being alive. I truly have. I've lived the American dream and I continue to live it. And my life is just getting started. Like I put in my post today, it's like, you're never too old. It's never too late. Um, I in my current venture, I had people tell me, "Oh, it's too risky. Don't do it. Oh, you don't have to do it this stage. Don't do it." And even people that threatened me, "Oh, no, you can't do that." Oh, okay. Well, don't tell me that because I'm just going to do it. But my,
Yeah.
but what I realized though, Don, and that's what inspires me every day is that when you surround yourself with the right people, they don't say no, they say go for it.
Right.
And I've realized, and that was the big, you know, on my timeline in 2018, that was the big thing that I realized is that there were a lot of people that are very close to us in our personal lives that we don't even know about. It could be your mother. It could be your father. It could be
Sure.
your brother. It could be a spouse. It could be a significant other. It could be a business partner. They're holding you back. And I don't, I think it's intentional because what somebody says is when somebody puts out the candle from somebody else, it makes theirs shine brighter.
Mm.
And that's sad. I want everybody's candle to shine bright. So what really excites me is trying to have everybody else shine their candle and helping them do that and helping them live the American dream just like I have.
That's a great answer to that question, and thank you for sharing that. I mean the thought process that you're sharing is essentially known as the crab pot mentality, which is essentially that the reason why crab pots don't have to have doors is because all the crabs essentially hold each other in. They each sort of
They
pull each
pull each
other
other
down,
down. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that's the sort of the thinking around that. But I mean, I also look at the fact that people around us oftentimes they love us, they don't want you to experience pain, and their thought of what this could be is that it's going to experience pain for you. The part that they're sort of underestimating is the real person that you are, Shane. And
Right.
I think that would be somebody's biggest mistake is underestimating you.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think that that's exactly true. And so, and I'm thankful for them. I'm thankful for the people that do care. But at the same time, I'm thankful for the ones that, maybe ask questions,
Yes.
but I'm truly thankful for the ones that have supported me through the thick and thin and have just said, go for it. And it inspires them and they inspire me. And so it's been truly just a wonderful journey.
Well, Shane, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and sharing your story with us. It's been a great journey in listening to your life story, and I wish you the best with Velocity as well.
Thank you very, very much, Don. I really, really appreciate it. And happy holidays and happy new year to you.
Thank you. Same to you.